Hello everyone, good afternoon guys, how you doing? Everything fine? So my name is Gabs, this is Digital Beer Stream, and we're having today the industry stream as we're doing normally on the Thursday. I hope you guys are well, how you doing? I hope you're having a great time. I hope you are all enjoying a bit of the sun if you have any, like in London today, which is a fantastic day, it's very summery. And I hope you all safe and your families and everyone. So today I'm pretty excited because I'm having a friend over, and this is a very good week. I've got lovely people that I spend great time with. It's a privilege to manage to have these beautiful chats with people, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you enjoyed so far the videos. I hope you enjoyed so far all the streams, and I hope you like my t-shirt as well. I'm gonna tell you later on where I found it. I think it's really makes sense for the type of activity that I'm doing in here, and it's an interesting one today because we're gonna speak about if the beer industry or beer community, if you prefer, it's a safe and equal environment, if it's a good industry to work for, it's a good industry to dig in it. And we're gonna do it with Aidy. I worked with Aidy when she was with Brooklyn Brewery, and she works now for Black Isle Brewery in Scotland. She's the marketing manager. So I've been out in Edinburgh, and I've been out in New York, and I've been out in London with her, which is make her another special person for me that I met in 3 different countries around the world, which is great. I hope to do the 4th one very soon. And Aidy have big experience in distribution, in sales, behind the bar as well at the Hanging Bats in Edinburgh. So she's a legend, she's great, and I'm gonna have her straight now into the stream. So just give me 1 second. She's gonna join me straight away. You're gonna love her energy as much as I do, I'm sure. And again, one more time, welcome to everyone.
Hi, hello, hi. I mean, I feel like I have such big shoes to fill after you're like, oh, she's a legend. Thanks. I appreciate it, but hello. I want to say it's nice to see you, but we literally just finished talking less than 5 minutes ago. Our pre-chat was supposed to be maybe 10-15 minutes, and we spoke for nearly an hour. It's pretty typical.
Especially for us, yeah, we always
100%.
I'm sure there are lots of people that are really happy to see you as much as
I hope so. I'm gonna try and adjust this camera a little. I said this was going to happen, that I was going to end up spending all my time figuring out this angle, but this will do.
I'm trying to make iPod work. I couldn't, so I'm literally on my phone for the first time, which is great. I'm exploring a new wave of doing the streams, and thank you to be here, Aidy. How are we doing? How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, this is a weird time, so it's ups and downs. Today is definitely a good day. Thank fuck for that, because it sort of made for an awful chat if I was just but lucky for you, I'm on the pendulum swing upwards today. No, it's a weird time. I think I was saying to you earlier that it's a weird time for those of us who are, it's a weird time for everyone, but it's a hard time for people who, like myself, are extreme extroverts who love nothing more than being around people and feeding off the energy of being around people. We're performers to a certain degree. I like an audience. This is a weird way to have an audience. I'm used to having one I can interact with, but this is great. This is the way that the industry adapts when times are strange. So good for you.
So I just want to remind to everyone to just feel free to comment and ask questions to Aidy today, because this is the right place, right time, and it's a very tough time indeed. And but again, it seems to find some adaptation. The industry we're working for, even our routine life, and I don't know if it's a necessarily a super good thing. We're all missing to go out, but somehow,
Yeah, absolutely. I
like
mean, yeah, we work in an industry that is all about being social. Booze is a social industry, both for the people that work in it and for the people who enjoy what it is that we're selling. So it's a weird time to not be able to be traditionally social. Yeah.
And you also booze. What are you drinking right now?
Oh, funny you should ask me. So I've gone for a local brewery. So obviously I should have gone for a Black Isle beer, but we're doing sour beers today, and that's not something that we specialize in. So instead I've gone for one of my pals. This is Vault City, who brew out of Dundee, but originally were brewing here in Edinburgh. My pal Johnny, whose brewery it is, they make some amazing beers. So I mean, just check out the color on this. I mean, it's just beautiful. I feel like, they used to talk about, I think it was at like Simpsons or something, it was about smell-o-vision, like where you should be able to like get the aroma through your TV. If you could smell this right now, it is divine. It is so packed with raspberries. It's absolutely beautiful.
Is it more like side of the raspberry, or is it more like the nice stuff?
It's I think this has got a really good balance of the sweetness in this one. So it gets, raspberries always going to have a little bit of tartness to them, which is nice. And the acidity cuts through that sweetness, so it's not sickly. But that also kind of balances in the other direction, I guess, as well, which is that it's not so, sometimes you get a sour that just makes you like have a pucker face where you're just like, I've just realized everyone could see me pulling that face and it's not just you. But but this is really nice. This is super balanced. So I'm pretty happy with this. It's 8.5%, but it's just a nice little bottle, and I'm sharing it with Joe, who's in the other room. So, because I have my second beer on the go as well. So,
Wife, which is next to me right now,
yeah.
Hello. A beer of my beer as well, which is our fine ales. And I'm aware you are quite familiar with the brewery as well.
Yes, they are another amazing Scottish brewery.
Absolutely. And I was checking out as well then, they considering home one of their most important beer, and is a blend of spontaneous fermented ales, 1, 2, and 3 years. And I'm expecting to be an interesting tart and lovely and refined bomb.
I love that, because that's a really similar description that I would give myself, an interesting tart that's refined.
Well, again, I love this style, and this is sour week, so we are years, and it's an interesting situation, because just probably a couple of years ago you wouldn't even think about just dedicated sour breweries in upstate UK. It's fantastic,
Yeah, absolutely.
This smells divine. Wow. Complex, massively complex. You can really feel the root on it. You can really feel that the good work. Feel that this beer is coming from far, actually. 2015, 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
Age barrel. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm on my element now, and I found this beer in this lovely bottle shop called Caps and Taps in North London, which I recommend to check it out. And Aidy, I love to talk about beer with you. I also like to talk about another important matter that I'm sure you are also very happy to talk about, which is starting with a question: is beer overall safe industry to be part of?
I think it's a complex question, isn't it? It's I think when we look at, or when we talk about beer, more often than not, people like yourself and myself, we're very much talking about the bubble that is craft beer, right? Because beer in its sort of entirety is this enormous thing that is available everywhere around the world. And I couldn't really speak to that quite so much, but what it was within my experience within the craft beer industry, and particularly here in the UK, I think it is. I think it is actually probably more so than often the more macro side of things. You have a really nice community of people within the craft beer industry, from the breweries themselves. They're all quite supportive, you know, a lot of the time, and not all the time. It feels very much like a collaborative kind of push towards better beer across the board, right? And so that often works the same way in terms of those same people being quite open and accepting to a diverse group of people, and it not just being about you know, one business wanting to push to succeed and not worrying or caring about anybody else. So you see a lot of these things like Craft Beer Cares that you work with, and for myself, I'll go plug the Women in Beer Festival and stuff. Like, it's still very much a male dominated space, particularly white men, you know, white cis men, but we're pushing towards like a more inclusive environment. I think, at least in my personal experience, I've not ever felt, you know, unsafe in this space. I definitely know of examples of friends who have maybe experienced sexual harassment behind the bar or at festivals or as a customer and things like that. But I think overall we do a pretty good job as a sort of much smaller piece of the beer market to be inclusive. But we still have a long way to go, you know, because we do still very much have, you know, if we were to look at the poster child that is craft beer, it is kind of, you know, stereotypically a white middle-class cis man, right? So yeah, there's work to be done, but there's a lot of really cool stuff happening and some noise being made by amazing groups and individuals, and yeah, so it's a big subject.
Yeah, and I like to think that even if in these days we are, you know, very negative about technology and social media, evolutions of them, definitely social media creates the ground to make sure bigger community, wider communities, and, you know, people that normally wouldn't express themselves in a way, in a bar, in a pub, in a brewery, or everyone found the right channel. So
yes, yeah, definitely. I think that works. I think when we look at the internet, like in general, that's what was one of the best things about when the internet started. Like, I even think about when I was like a teenager, a very, like, a horribly long time ago, right? You know, the internet connected people who otherwise felt quite maybe isolated and alienated from other communities or other people like them, right? Whether that was you were queer and you weren't ready to come out, or you didn't have anyone that you were comfortable talking about it, whether you were, you know, living in a small town and you didn't have anyone who had the same music taste as you. Maybe you were that little goth kid living somewhere. Like, all of those kind of people were able to use like chat groups on the internet and stuff like that to start to find people like them, right? And that was when the internet kind of was just getting started, and we've been able to kind of grow on that, obviously. And so I think that has a pros and cons that come with that, which is that you have the confidence to talk and find people like you, or find people that are supportive and everything. You also have the flip side, which is the people also have the confidence to say things that they wouldn't say to your face. You know, the flip side of that. I mean, I don't want to dwell on that at all. I don't want to give them any airtime, but like, there's, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword in that regard. But I think that the internet definitely gives us a way of making those more minority groups and things more visible within the industry, which is super important. And yeah, it's great because we all become, especially like right now during lockdown, right? Like, if we didn't have the internet and all of the technology that we do, it'd be a very different experience for a lot of us, and not just the beer industry, like just everyone across the board, right? Being able to do this with you, even pre-lockdown, the fact that you and I aren't in the same country, you know, but you throw in the mix of the fact that we're in isolation as well, and being able to connect with people who have the same, you know, values as you, or who just on paper are the same as you, just not feeling like you're alone. I think that's super important all the time. But I think it's particularly important for people who are in, you know, minority and underrepresented groups. And, you know, women in beer, we're a part of that. And I realize that we're actually still a more privileged part than, you know, people of color, the queer community, you know, if you tick all of those boxes, if you're queer, you're a woman, and you're a person of color, like, you know, these are things that the internet makes it easier for people to connect and to like elevate and, you know, talk about those people and, you know, and the amazing work that's been done around the place. And I guess, like, and we talked about this earlier, we want to make it a place of positivity, right? Like highlighting and shouting about the cool stuff that's happening and the cool people that are already doing lots of great things in our like little microcosm that is craft beer.
I definitely agree with you, because it's not, I didn't really care about, you know, differences and stuff. For me, is nothing really makes any difference. And
Yeah.
the other difference is when someone acting bad and when someone acting, this is how I feel. But in the past, I wasn't aware of all of these difficulties within the industry. So internet definitely gave me a chance to, you know, progress with my knowledge and be in touch with people. But another thing that I like to say to you is also the fact that you work in different sectors within the beer industry.
Yeah.
So from behind the bar to distribution, sales. And do you see some of these parts of the industry weaker than the other ones?
I think when you're kind of, I mean, to be fair, like a lot of my experience is very much customer facing. So even when I was, I mean, I did a brief stint when I was working with New Wave and distribution, where I was purely behind the scenes versus like, you know, out front as I usually am. And I was lucky. I mean, they're a great company who were, it was never even I think, or at least I never felt it was a question as to whether they needed to have a woman in a position or a man in a position and things like that. It was very much just like, hey, you're the right fit for this job. You should do it, right? So I don't think I think I was quite lucky, and I think I'm very aware of the fact that I've had a pretty smooth run of things. You know, I haven't maybe faced the challenges that other people have. You know, and I'm very aware of my privilege even right now, like chatting about it being a, you know, a mouthpiece for talking about inclusion in the industry. I also know that I've had it easier than a lot of people. But I think for me, one of the things that in my personal experience and from talking to a lot of other people in the industry, one of the things that is, when you are customer facing, and when I'm talking about, customer facing, I mean the end customer. I mean, when you're working with the public versus a lot of that there's definitely still an element of sexism that I've experienced and that other people have experienced, about that being a assumption that because of your gender you wouldn't know, or you couldn't know, or maybe you don't even like beer, right? That there is this assumption that your knowledge won't be as strong as the man standing next to you, right? And which is just ludicrous, because you can't look at someone and determine what their level of beer knowledge is, right? Like you can't look at someone and determine what their knowledge is based on any, like, you know, any subject matter. So you have to at least give someone an opportunity to talk to you about something before you make that sweeping judgment, right? And so that definitely still happens. You know, and I think if I just focus on the beer element, that is something that's frustrating. There's obviously the additional side of things where there's the more sexual harassment element that comes along with maybe being a woman behind the bar or a woman working at a beer festival and stuff. But I think if we're just talking about the industry side of things, like purely about beer itself, then just that assumption that as a woman you won't have the same level of knowledge, you know, that and you know, I think a lot of us have had that question where someone, you know, Chris who still works in Brooklyn and one of our good friends, very much like we've had times where he has been, because he's a great advocate, he's amazing, and would be like, somebody's asked a question after I've been speaking to him, he's like, oh, you know, like Aidy works in that, like she's worked in that for longer, and like push it back and kind of make a point. And I think that's really nice. It's nice to have those people who are willing to like back you up, but it's sad that it's necessary, right? So that's where it's important that we increase visibility of people of all different backgrounds, whether it's your gender, whether it's your, you know, sexual orientation, your religion, your ethnicity, all of those things, it's important to have like, you know, visibility for all of us, so that we kind of break down those ridiculous stereotypes.
I used to go in a pub and, you know, having someone ask to me and to my wife what we were going to drink, and the guy was
yeah.
all the time. And I said,
yeah.
try for her, just ask her. She's here.
Yeah.
She knows beer, she knows what she like.
Yeah.
I can't decide what she want to get, you know?
Totally. And also, like, maybe she doesn't know. There's a teaching moment, right? Like, if somebody comes up to the bar and because it does happen on both sides, actually. That's a really good point that you've just made, which is that it's not just customers assuming that bartenders don't know what they're talking about, or that brewery representatives don't know what they're talking about. It happens the other way around as well. Whereas as a woman who's been working in the beer industry for a decent amount of time now, right? And even before that, just really likes beer. Like, you know, even if I didn't work in the industry, I am, you know, a diehard beer drinker, right? So I walk up to a bar and the bartender, whether it's a woman or a man, you know, treats me like I don't know. I couldn't know. So it happens both ways. It's not just one way round. And I think it's just like, you want to work with, like, just when you're just like open and friendly with people, and just be, it's so easy to say to someone, hey, you know, can I help you choose a beer?
Yeah.
Or can I help you choose a drink? It doesn't even have, you know, you don't need to make an assumption as to what they want, right? And then let them guide you from there. And then if they're like, oh, I'm not really a beer drinker, great. Give them a chance to like try some shit. I think like when I moved here, so I moved to Scotland, or the UK in general, but like Scotland 7 years ago, right? I had no background in beer, like nothing at all. I just had tried some like Little Creatures Pale Ale, because that was like the brewery that was close to like where my family lived in Western Australia, and a few other things, maybe a few Belgian beers and stuff, but mainly it was like Australia is pretty much like, you know, generic lager lands, or at least it was in my personal experience at the time, right? And so when I came over here, I was like really like honest about the fact that I knew sweet F all about beer, and I really wanted to know because I knew there was better stuff available. And I think I was just so incredibly lucky that I got to start where I started. I started with this amazing team at the Hanging Bat, which was a real mix. They'd done such a great job of choosing people for their customer experience. And a lot of those people maybe didn't have any beer knowledge, but were just great with people. And then they had people who had like loads of beer knowledge. And it wasn't to say that those two things were like, you know, mutually exclusive. They could be both, right? But they had this nice balance of people that like, and I just had this really supportive team. Many of whom, like, I mean, in fact, almost everyone I worked with about 7 years ago, I'm still like, either we still work together in a different capacity, or we're just friends like outside, because it was such a great team. And I think we were always encouraged to be like, just like talk to the customer, like have a taste of a beer. Like you can learn as you're teaching. And I think that was a really like pretty critical moment for me in learning about beer, but also learning how to talk to other people about beer, that I've like held onto like so strongly, because I didn't feel going into this craft beer scenario like a total loser, because I didn't know anything, and in fact I felt like supported and like, you know, lifted up. And so like, I want customers to feel that way too, right? Like it's a fucking great experience when you get to talk to someone and like pass on your passion and enthusiasm for beer to them. Like, why would you want to like just like kind of steamroll over that?
It's a lesson in a way that you're not really teaching, you're just driving people, you're just taking their hands and to do a little trip together into something that holding. And you know, just a reminder, I'm here with Aidy from Black Isle Brewery in Scotland, and we're chatting about if the industry is a safe and potentially equal environment, and some good funk beer. And my curiosity was also like when you mentioned the fact that sometimes very, you know, conscious community within the beer community sometimes expect you to be an arc or super total into your beliefs. And what would you say about that? Because it's interesting. Like,
I don't know. It's a weird one. I think that. Oh, sorry. You keep talking because I've just missed that.
Like, you must be, supportive, and then you also must be, positive, active, and then you must be superhero, and you must be, can you just be what you're happy to be, or do you must be everything?
That is an excellent question. So I think that we all feel like sometimes we're not doing enough, right? I mean, actually, no, I take it back. There's a lot of people who already feel like they're doing plenty, and maybe they are, and maybe they're not, but whatever, they're comfortable where they are, right? And good, like, that's great. But I think a lot of us, especially those of us who are maybe in those groups, those minority groups, right, the underrepresented groups, sorry, I should say, maybe we feel a little bit more of a drive to help, kind of elevate those, those topics and those subjects and discrepancies and things like that, inequality. But I think we have to, like, always remember that we're all human, right? Like, and I think this is hopefully one of the good things that comes out of this shitty lockdown pandemic experience, right? Which is that a lot of us are, like, asking at the moment, how are you, right? And it's not just like an I'm fine response that we're waiting for. It's like a true response, right? You really want to check in on the mental health of the people around you, the people that you care about. When you ask that question now, it has a deeper meaning than it did several weeks ago, right? And I think that I really hope that what that reminds people of is that we all, at a base, we're all just people trying to survive in whatever space it is. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes and all of those things, right? So therefore, we want to remember that maybe someone isn't, standing on their soapbox and preaching about a subject, despite the fact that they have a platform to do that. But maybe it's just because, like, it's taking all their energy to just do what it is that they're doing right now, right? And that's enough. Like, but I think what we look for is, like, just to, as long as no one's really doing anything that goes against those, that pulls us backwards. Because I think then you do need to kind of, sadly, you need to highlight the wrong behavior, but you also don't need to berate anyone who's maybe not living up to your expectations of what someone who has a platform, right, can do and stuff. So, and we're all going to see what happens. I've just seen, like, someone posted, it's I want to say it's Rock Leopard Brewing. Sorry, I can't really see. I'm not wearing my glasses. It's like, we can't go back to normal. And we talked about this earlier, right? Like, it's not going to be the same when we come out of this. Like, forget, like, even if all the pubs reopen and distribution channels reopen, like, we can't, just as, like, a group, we can't be the same. Because, and I hope we're not. Like, I hope we all come out of this more evolved and more caring and more aware of the people around us and those groups of people who really need us to, like, collectively lift them up. Like, I think this is something that ahead of this, with things like the Women in Beer Festival that my beautiful friend Amélie founded with the Beers Without Beards group, and there's lots of other groups, there's the Women on Tap that's currently going on in a digital landscape at the moment, Crafty Beer Girls and things, like all sorts of these amazing groups, right? We've been doing an amazing job of lifting up women in the industry and being supportive of each other and things like that. But what we kind of need to, like, moving out of this is not just work on the groups that we fit into, right? It's about lifting up all those groups. And I think I don't want to say for a second that any of those groups weren't doing that to begin with, but I think we can do it bigger and better, which is, like, it shouldn't just be queer people who have to promote queer inclusivity. It shouldn't just be women who promote women being included. It shouldn't just be people of color who have to talk about those things. As a group, we should all be like, fuck yeah, this is what we want. We want the best, like, fucking melting pots of, like, cultures and genders and, like, and everything, right? Like, that's what we want. So I hope coming out of this, especially on the back of things like this fucking bullshit, excuse my language, sorry, clearly you can see I'm getting on a rant, right? But this whole unskilled workers bollocks that has been put out into the world, right? That is like not the case at all. We knew that. I mean, you and I know, like, we've talked enough about this stuff that I know that we share the same views on that, right? But I really hope that that's what we come out of this, like, this whole thing, understanding that, like, that we need to be looking after the people who you know, who need that, who need us to, like, use our voices, especially those of us who are in a privileged position, whether that is because of the color of your skin, the space you exist in, and, like, you know, financially, all of those things. Like, we got to build each other up, and that works across the board, but it also really works within us as the beer industry too, right? So I'm gonna get real, like, I'm gonna get even more preachy if you don't stop me. But this is what I want to see, right? So what I want to see.
I'm in London, and wherever I'm going out, you know, doing my shopping or even just for a walk, I see vans, I see, you know, cars, and all of these vans and cars are people that deliver stuff.
Right? Yeah.
And I'm asking them, can you imagine going out at 8 a.m., finishing at 8 p.m., doing like 50 drop of whatever, you know, beautiful thing there are out there for us, for people like you and everyone.
Exactly. Right?
And these people must be remembered as the one that make our life easier.
Yes.
Then made sure that our mental health, because we have a drink and we can carry on in our normal life, we're there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And those are the people, like, who are often very much behind the scenes, right? Like, I think I mentioned earlier about, like, I've spent most of my career being the kind of the mouthpiece of breweries and bars and things like that, because I am clearly a big personality who enjoys being in front of people and can clearly talk nonstop without taking a breath for forever. But, you know, like, but there are so many people behind the scenes, right, that we don't know about, who aren't the visible people within whatever industry you're talking about, right? Like, whether it's the people who are cleaning at hospitals or whether it's the people who are delivering you beer right now, like, all of these people that do these jobs, but they're not the ones that are on, you know, having their photos on Instagram and things like that. Like, these people need to be celebrated, and also we need to, just more visibility around all of that. And I think that's the thing. I think something that really came out during when I kind of was working a lot closer with Beers Without Beers, which is very much like Amélie's baby that I just kind of support on. But the Women in Beer Festival and Beers Without Beers project, like, you know, when you realize that there's a lot of women, for example, who work in the beer industry, right? But so many of them work in things like a marketing capacity and things like that, right? Like, versus maybe working in the brewing side of things, or packaging, or what we're talking about, like, you know, the delivery and everything like that, right? And those are fucking integral roles, right? I mean, let's be honest, I work in marketing, and those jobs are more important than what I do, really. Because if you can't make the beer and get the beer to people, then there's no point in marketing it, right? You know, and doing events and things. Because if there's no beer, you know, there's no product. But it's about finding as well, though, I think, about the balance when you want to showcase those people, the people in all aspects, but you want to do it in a way that also doesn't make them kind of like, you know, just like wheeling them out as kind of like a, hey, it's International Women's Day, look at this woman we have working for us. Or it's, you know, like, you just have to do it in a really, just in a way that normalizes it all, instead of making it kind of a little tacky, for lack of a better way of saying it, you know.
That. And, you know, again, given the fact that we will work hard for beer, and probably the world will be a better place, because this is mission number one for me. I want to make sure that, you know, whatever action we're doing in these days is going to be something that could make sure things are going to get better. Because for me, no, what do you dream is not what do you necessarily live, because otherwise will be very disruptive, my idea of you know, reality and the one that I am right now. So would you say then you are happy then you decide to stay in this industry 7 years ago?
Yes. I mean, holy hell, like, just like for people who are watching who don't know me, my background was I was working in advertising sales and campaigns for a big media company in Sydney. I wouldn't say I was like earning like an amazing amount, but I definitely, I mean, I probably lost about 60-70% of my income when I made the move to the UK, forgetting about exchange rates and stuff, just purely like, you know, once you translated that over, that's the step that I took, because I was like, this is not for me, what I was doing. I wasn't happy. And this is something that I'm like excited about. It had been like a really long time of like me not necessarily having anything I was like excited to learn about. So I was like, it's worth the risk to at least try it for a little while and see how it goes. And I mean, I was hooked like so quickly. And I'd only worked in a bar for 6 months because like, I really hate late nights. I'm a granny. So, but, you know, bar work wasn't necessarily for me, but the beer industry, I was absolutely hooked. And, you know, I've been incredibly lucky to work with amazing people across the multitude of roles. And, you know, I'd say probably all of whom I still can, you know, are still a part of my life, whether it's in a digital way or, you know, or a more frequent sort of like catch up kind of space. And, you know, I feel really lucky about that. And I think the product is great, right? Like we're really lucky we have this beautiful product to drink, but there's also great booze in like across the board, right? I could find wine that I like. I can find spirits that I like, cocktails, whatever you want to look at. So yes, the beer, the physical product is important. If it was crap, there'd be less of us excited about it. But really it's the people that make this industry what it is, at least for me. And so that's why it's important to support each other and to make it feel like it's, you know, not make it feel like, make it so that it is a space that is inviting and accepting and welcoming to people. And I was really lucky. I got that welcome when I came to Scotland and, you know, enjoying the hanging bat. And I've been really lucky along the way to work for companies that have welcomed me with open arms and just to meet an exceptional bunch of people. And so that's really something that I want to be able to like pass on, and is the highlight of my job, no matter where it is, whether it's a bottle shop tasting where I'm like, maybe I only talk to 6 people in a night, or whether it's like, you know, pouring beers at a beer festival where you're just like slammed all day, and you don't necessarily have a chance to like truly talk to anyone. That if you can like give even a little bit of that excitement onto people, it's awesome, and it's addictive. Like, you know, I don't want to lose that. I love that. You know, and I would like to see, obviously, the landscape there. I would like to see a more diverse audience. You know, I want to say that it's not something that is just for, you know, for white middle class cis people and stuff like that. You know, it is something that is, we talked about earlier when you and I were sitting in Other Half Brewery, the tap room in New York, just before we were due to fly home, and we started chatting to like, you know, Theo from Dope and Dank, and he had because we saw his jacket, and it was like, Black people love beer, right? And we were like, fuck yes, that is great. Like, I want to see more of that stuff. I want to see more people from all different like backgrounds and communities getting involved. Like, I know that there'll always be a price point objective because craft beer is more expensive. A lot of us understand why that is, you know, and so that's going to always slightly make it harder for some people to get involved, but maybe it's just, you know, everything else we can do to kind of make it as inclusive and accepting as possible would be, you know, better for all of us, man. It's just going to be more fun, right?
I don't know if I asked anyone, but when I came over to the UK, I couldn't speak English at all, and
Yeah.
because I was really into beer at that time in Italy, I decided to continue with the journey within beer and pubs. So these pubs in central London, I remember this gentleman, he was coming an hour before the pub was open, and he was teaching me an hour of English grammar in the way it opened up the bar. and he was doing that because he knew I loved beer, and he felt
Yes.
it was the right thing to do because he saw human potential. Don't even know how, but he did it.
Yeah.
And he was a 65 years old man. Then he was crashing his own pints of beers. He was like, I met him again in another craft beer bar later, and he said, "Guess why I teach you that time?" And I said to him, "Because you're a kind person." And he
Yeah.
was just like, "Not just because that, because every single time you're gonna have a beer, you gotta remember then, because the beer, you managed to learn a language." So
Yes.
I'm like,
I love that. Can I just say, like, I mean, I only speak English, right? Like, you know, God, I wish I spoke other languages. But when when I first moved to Scotland, there were some nights when I was working at the bar where it might as well have been another language, because you'd get like you'd get like someone come in and I'd be like, oh my God, I don't understand this Scottish like accent. But you always kind of just got through it, because like, you know, a smile gets you a long way, right? Like, and you can like just pour someone a taster, or like there are certain things that like just transcend like language, right? And it's not just beer, obviously, but like, it's, you know, all of those things. That's like, you know, you struck up a friendship, whether it was a one evening or whether it was a forever friendship. Like, you struck that because you both were open to that opportunity, right?
correct.
And you learn shit from each other, whatever that is, whether it's learning about beer or it's learning about someone's culture. Like, all of those things are great, right? And I love that. And booze helps sometimes with that, because you feel a little bit more courageous, maybe, if you've had like a little bevy first, you know, a little Dutch courage. But you know, I think like I managed to struggle through like kind of some times where I was just like, I've had to ask this person like 4 times now what they want to drink, and I'm still not like getting it. But you know, you laugh about it and you keep going. And I think that's all really nice. Those are beautiful experiences. Like when we travel, like the number of times that myself or like Joe or someone has been able to go into a bar and sit. And this is something actually interesting. As a woman in Australia, I never did this. I never ever went to a bar and like would sit on my own. And I don't know whether that was a cultural thing or whether that was just me personally. Like, maybe I wasn't comfortable to do that. I don't want to make any sweeping statements about like Australian culture around that, but I never felt comfortable to like go and sit in a bar unless I knew a friend was like 5-10 minutes away, right? But as soon as I got to Edinburgh, it was like quiet, and I was living here on my own, but I felt instantly a lot more comfortable with being able to just like go and sit and order a beer. But I think that had more to do with the bars that I was visiting being these like bars where people were really excited about what it was that they were drinking and stuff, and it was so much easier to maybe like strike up a conversation with a bartender about what was available that day, or what were they excited about, or all of that stuff, right? And it was just, it was really cool. And I think it made my whole introduction to the UK easier as well. Like, not just the beer industry, but like that kind of just getting to know people and getting to feel comfortable and learn about beer and try stuff. And when I travel now, you get bartenders who will pour you things just to taste. And that's another thing that's big in the like beer industry, right? Which is that you give tasters of things like to people, and you help them decide, you know, what it is that they want, and you talk to them, and it's just like a conversation starter. It just makes things like super comfortable and relaxed and less. Yeah, I just don't want pretentious places where you feel uncomfortable to ask questions and things. Like, we want fun and comfort and enthusiasm and energy and excitement. That's what I want when I go out for a drink, and I can only bring so much of that myself, and you want to get that reciprocated, right? I mean, I bring a lot, but like
I'm sure that if there are gonna be people like you know, visiting pubs and bars, and you know, sharing the experience, and even like make sure that a message, I don't want to say the vegan message, the equality, the right message will be delivered out there. I can be quite, you know, feeling all right, because yeah, you've been a good advocate to.
I'm trying. I'm trying. You know, I mean, I'm really passionate about it. And you know, I think we all do it. If we can all do it in a little way, like not everybody needs to be a big, like I said, grandstand, like kind of about it, right? Like that's not the role for everyone, and that's okay. But if, you know, whether it's just someone who, like you said earlier, like if a bartender asks you what your wife wants to drink, when you say, look, she can choose her own drink, you're being an advocate, right? Because you're pointing out the discrepancy there and how they've, you know, treated you versus how they're treating your partner. And I think, you know, those little things, they're important things. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be loud about things. Just subtle things like that make a really big change eventually when we all start doing it together, right? You start to slowly make people realize that that behavior is not okay. And you also, not only are you teaching the person who's maybe done the wrong thing, maybe they didn't mean anything by it. Like, you know, you want to, that's why it's important, I think, personally, not to just instantly go for the jugular about this stuff and like yell at people and say, you shouldn't have said that. Instead, you want to be like, okay, hey, you know what? She's good to like order her own beer, right? Like, but when you can do it in ways like that, you're not only educating the person who's maybe showing the wrong behaviors, you're also making it a really comfortable place, and you're supporting the person who's been on the receiving end of the wrong behavior. And so both of those things are like really, really important. And so, you know, we can all do that together. We don't all have to run inclusive. We don't all have to suddenly run inclusive beer festivals or start like, you know, digital chats talking about important subjects. Like that's not like, if we all do that, it dilutes the message a little bit because people are just like overwhelmed by it almost, where they might shut down a bit, right? You don't really preach that. But I think when we all just do those little subtle things that are really, really important, that just shifts, right? It's like a grain of sand or something. I don't know. Choose something else that's profound. A grain of sand. Yeah.
To every festival in London, and we're gonna have a great time. You know, for me, it's quite visible that we can speak for 3, 5, 7, 25 hours non-stop and at the matter. And yeah. I noticed Ram is going mad when I'm going over the 50 minutes somehow.
Yeah, sorry.
No, hey, again, it's not. And Aidy,
yes.
What are you doing? What are your priorities? What are your tips for fight the burden of the rest of the days that we have about? What do you suggest? What are your tips?
So it's been a roller coaster, right? Like I said at the start of this, that I struggle because I'm such an extroverted personality who feeds off being around other people. So I think, you know, I think it's about finding a balance of having those moments, whether it's, because Zoom calls can be real tedious, right? Like we're all talking over each other, or there's a delay in the, you know, someone's kind of frozen. Joanne, who is, I've seen pop up in the chat, every time we're on a Zoom call, that poor girl, she's so pretty, so it works amazingly well, but she gets frozen and she's like a portrait. But like, you know, those things are like, Zoom calls are frustrating, right? You know? So it's balancing that. It's like balancing being able to like touch base with those people that are important, and to see people really helps, right? I think seeing a face versus just being on the phone, but you gotta just kind of balance how that works for you. And like, you know, I think it's also really important to like give yourself those days where it's okay if you want to have like what we would call in Australia a doona day or a duvet day, right? Like where you just like just kind of like throw that duvet or doona over your head and like shut the world out for the day. If you have to do that, like do it, you know. And I think for me, like I spent like a lot of weeks where I kind of felt quite like drifting, like I didn't have a real purpose. And I think this week, the last couple of weeks, I've found things easier to find projects around the house and stuff to like start working on. But don't beat yourself up if you don't do shit during this lockdown. Like if all you do is survive with your sanity intact, like good for you, you know. But I also think one piece of advice I would say is someone who struggles with anxiety personally, and a little bit with their mental health, I think it's like do not be afraid, especially right now. I feel like people are so much more open and receptive to those conversations. Like, put your hand up if you're struggling. And if you're on your own, because honestly, like, I cannot can't comprehend how difficult it must be for people who are genuinely isolating solo, right? Put your hand up if you're struggling, and even if it means talking to a stranger. There are so many people online at the moment who are putting themselves out there to say that they are willing to talk to you, or maybe there's a national service. There's so many different options out there, but like, don't try and brave it on your own. Be like, it's okay to like put your hand up and say that you're having a hard time, right? Because even people who don't normally struggle with their mental health are having a hard time right now. So if you're someone who started off at a disadvantage, right, then you got, then there's a lot of us out here who are willing to like support you, however that is. So I think that's probably like, if there's one thing I can say, it's like, just be brave if you have to be, and put your hand up and say, I'm having a hard time, whatever it's about. But I think like, there's all this like, we're all in it together and all this stuff, right? But like, I want this will pass eventually, right? Like, I'm trying to like focus on that. Who knows what, normal will have changed. And things won't go back to the way exactly that they were, like, and that's both exciting and terrifying. But I think I'm just kind of trying to just take a deep breath and not think too much about that, because I can't control any of that, right? So focus on the little things that I can control, like, and just be nice to each other, just be kind to each other. And I think that's, I don't know, that there ends my Dr. Phil special.
I volume over and say, come on guys. Oh man. Aidy, I hope I'm gonna give you the biggest hug I can.
I'm ready. I'm very ready.
I don't even gonna think too much about how difficult it could be in your daily routine to come to Scotland. All I have to do, as much as you're always welcome in London, and please let's not spend too long before meeting each other again.
Yeah, maybe we can, when this whole travel ban finishes, maybe we can meet each other in a fourth country.
Ooh.
Who knows?
Northern Ireland would be the option, and there are.
Yes.
We had beautiful comments as well. So thank you very much to everyone who followed this, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, and also please thank you very much, Aidy, because hear all of your tips and all of your point of view on this big part of our, which is.
I have loved this. I've absolutely loved it. I told you earlier today how nervous I was about it. I think just because it's been a long time since I've been in front of people. Like, this is something I do for a job, right? Like, I stand in front of people and I talk about my passion for beer and, about women in the beer industry and things like that. But like, I was nervous because it's been a while and I'm losing my social skills. But it's been absolutely delightful. It's been lovely to see your face. To see someone who I love. It has been awesome to talk about in particular a subject that is incredibly important to me, inclusivity in the beer industry. So thank you so much for providing a platform to do that.
Pleasure.
Seriously. I love you.
I love you too, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, guys. Do follow, and if you want to share with friends that you think gonna like to hear what we say today, please feel free to share it to everyone. And
don't forget to say hi to your mum.
Yeah, actually.
Hi guys, mum. And I think I saw my uncle. Log in, who lives. I think he's in like Ottawa or something at the moment. So hi, Uncle Alistair. And I don't know anyone else who's like tuned in that I know. I love you all.
Oh man, I love it so much. And again, let's not wait too long before reach us again.
Definitely. Definitely. All right.
Take
Goodbye.
Bye.